Coming up on FYI, the sisters helping make sure the food we eat isn't endangering animals.
There were so many orangutans' lives had been completely destroyed.
And we put your questions to the man in charge of Scotland, the new First Minister, Humza Yousaf. Hello, this is your weekly news show, FYI. Stick with us for the latest on all the top stories.
And we're going to start with one of the most amazing survival stories we've ever heard. It took place in a part of the Amazon rainforest that's in Colombia, one of the most extreme environments on Earth. Hot, humid and full of dangerous creatures.
It's here that a small aircraft crash-landed in the middle of nowhere. 4 children escaped the crash relatively unhurt. But sadly, the 3 adults they were with, including their mother, didn't survive.
So the children were left completely alone. The oldest only 13, the others 9, 4 and just 1.
And amazingly, they survived for 40 days until they were found by a Colombian military search party.
They'd eaten bags of flour from the plane and rainforest fruits. Their first words, not surprisingly, were that they were very hungry. The children are now recovering in hospital and have been reunited with their father and their grandparents.
We're joined by adventurer and wildlife presenter Steve Backshall. Steve, you filmed in many remote jungles. How amazing is it that these children survived?
Well, we do a lot of expeditions in jungles, and it's always a hard environment to work in, but we always have modern equipment with us. We're prepared for every eventuality. We have, all the food we need. We have hammocks and sleeping bags and everything that we need to make sure that we are absolutely comfortable. And they had next to nothing. The ability to be able to survive and even thrive during that time is phenomenal for anyone. But for it to be done by a group of children, the youngest of whom was 1 year old, is completely beyond my understanding.
How significant was it that the children belonged to a rainforest tribe themselves?
I think it's everything. They would have grown up in this environment and able to use it to their advantage. All the things that we would be terrified by, to them would be an opportunity. They would know how to gather water easily and be able to drink it without getting sick, which, would probably turn our stomachs. They're also going to be well aware of what they need to do to make sure they avoid things like mold and fungus growing on you, like bug bites and the things that can come from that. So yes, their inherent knowledge and experience is a massive part of why they're here at all and how they manage to flourish.
What do you make of this story? Dairy cows in Australia have developed a taste for chocolate, eating everything from chocolate bars to lollies. It would probably make their milk taste extra delicious, but is it fake news or fact? We'll let you know later.
Now to Scotland, where the country's new leader, Humza Yousaf, is just 2 months into his job as First Minister.
FYI was invited to Scotland's beautiful capital city, Edinburgh, to meet him and put forward questions.
Scotland is the second largest of the UK's 4 nations, with around 5.5 million people living here, though still only a tenth of England's population. Like Wales and Northern Ireland, it's had its own government for over 20 years. The system's known as devolution and means each nation has control over certain things in their country, such as the NHS and education, though some decisions are still taken by the UK government back in London. Along with Wales, Scotland leads on giving young people a voice. They're the only UK nations that let young people vote for their politicians from the age of 16. In England and Northern Ireland, the voting age is 18. I'm here in Edinburgh at the headquarters of the Scottish Government St Andrew's House. Today, they're taking part in a very special event that happens once a year, the Cabinet Takeover, to make sure that Scottish children really get their say.
The 3 issues, obviously, that were raised, we will absolutely follow up on those 3 issues. I thought they were so powerful.
Here, young people across Scotland get to put their ideas to the First Minister.
Well, things that we want to change is looking at the key issues that are really affecting children right now.
And they feel the meeting does achieve results.
I think they are listening to us because over the years a few things have been turned into real things.
Free bus passes for all Scottish young people aged 5 to 21 came in as a direct result of one of these sessions.
Creating policy, developing policy, coming up with ideas that affect young people, that should be done with young people.
And after the cabinet takeover, my chance to put FYI viewers' questions to Humza, who's leader of the ruling Scottish National Party, the SNP. Can you tell me about your job and what you do?
So I'm the First Minister of Scotland. I've been in the job for just over 10 weeks and I lead the Scottish Government. It's the biggest honour of my life.
Well, growing up, did you ever think you'd actually become the First Minister?
Not at all. My family history and heritage is one that my grandfather came here in the 1960s from Pakistan. And I don't think he ever thought in 2 generations' time that his grandson could end up being the First Minister of Scotland. Now that I am in position, I hope that particularly young people of colour, young Muslim boys and girls, can look at the highest office in the country and say, well, you know what, maybe one day I could be there too.
So now I have some questions from an FYI News Club at Cumbernauld Academy.
Why is the cost of living so high when no families can't afford it? What are you going to try to do about this?
That's a great question from the FYI Club in Cumbernauld. And I want to thank them for that question because the cost of living is far too high.
Yeah.
You know, I've just heard from a group of members of the Children's Parliament and members of the Scottish Youth Parliament. And one of the issues they raised with me was children taking on the worries of their parents. So they might overhear their parents talking about money issues. It will feed into their anxiety. It will make life really difficult for them. It affects their friendships. It affects their schoolwork.
Is there anything specific that you're doing?
We've introduced something called the Scottish Child Payment. It's a unique payment, only available here in Scotland. It's helping to lift children directly out of poverty.
As new First Minister, how will you support LGBTQ+ rights in Scotland?
You know, this is one of the issues that is so close to my heart.
Yes.
Look, I've grown up in this country as a minority my whole life. And I know what it's like to feel like you don't belong. And therefore I've got a duty to make sure our LGBTQ+ community, particularly our trans community at the moment, I've got a duty to make sure that I'm not only protecting them, which I will do, but I'm also advancing their rights. We can't ignore the fact that when we look at police statistics, there's still far too much rampant homophobia. I want every LGBTQ+ person in the country to know that as me as First Minister, they've got somebody that will not just defend them, but advance their rights where I can.
Yeah, we really need an environment where people can just be free and safe to be who they are.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I remember when I was a young Muslim growing up in Scotland, and I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel like I belonged, and that was a horrible feeling. Yeah. And I definitely don't want anybody in our LGBTQ+ community, or anybody in Scotland, to ever feel like that again.
Figures regarding Ukrainian refugees suggest Scotland has taken around double the number of refugees for its population size compared to England. And it's an issue Humza Yousaf feels strongly about.
So we are, for example, if you look at Ukrainian refugees, we're making sure that in Scotland, first of all, we provide a home to as many of those refugees as we can. I'm really upset actually at some of the discussion, the political discourse around refugees, around immigrants, around asylum seekers. I think it's too negative. I think we have, two parties, in the Conservatives and the Labour Party, who seem to want a race to the bottom when it comes to refugees. I also think it's really important that we give legal and safe routes for asylum seekers and those that are seeking to migrate here. Because if we don't have safe routes, unfortunately, the only option available is unsafe routes, those small boats. And instead of trying to deport people to Rwanda, whatever the UK government is trying to do, that we should create safe legal routes because our country needs it too.
The Scottish National Party's main aim has always been to become a completely independent country, separate from the rest of the UK. But the UK government has blocked any more votes on this by the Scottish people.
Under your leadership, will Scotland see another push for independence? If so, what will it look like?
Yes, is the short answer. The future of our country should be in the hands of the people that live here. They should make the decisions that are in the best interests of this country. And we've got a UK government, I'm afraid, that often acts in the worst interest of Scotland. Unfortunately, we've got a UK government that denies us the right to a referendum. So we'll then have to make every election, including the next general election, about the issue of independence.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to answer my questions. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, Scarlett, look at this. Can you believe it's been nearly 5 years since Greta Thunberg did her first Friday school strike outside the Swedish Houses of Parliament when she was just 15?
Her climate change protests have just become a part of our lives, and she's finally held her last school strike after 251 weeks as she's graduated from her Swedish high school.
I mean, it's crazy to think that just one girl's Friday school strikes sparked a whole worldwide movement.
We will not be silenced because we are the change, and change is coming whether you like it or not.
She's been such an inspiration to our generation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, around the same time Greta started her strikes, two British sisters launched a petition to stop rainforest destruction.
Asha and Gia had heard about how huge areas of rainforest were being destroyed to make way for palm oil plantations.
The girls were shocked that many orangutans were losing their rainforest home and becoming endangered as a result.
Palm oil is used in many everyday products, including lots of the food we eat. And 3 years ago, the girls took a petition to Kellogg's to discuss changing their policy on palm oil.
Well, recently, Asha and Gia went back to Kellogg's, and we're delighted that they're here with us now. So, Asha, Gia, why did you guys decide to start your petition?
So back in 2018, we were watching a palm oil documentary about an orangutan rehabilitation centre, and their lives had been completely destroyed by the palm oil industry. It was saying about how palm oil is in like everyday products. So we, just out of interest, we were eating a box of chocolates and we turned it over and we realised palm oil was in it.
So we set up a petition on change.org. It's really blown up, and I think recently we reached 1 million signatures.
So how did Kellogg's get involved?
Well, they saw our petition online and they sent us a letter and they said, you know, like, we really want to meet with you.
It's amazing that such a big brand, you know, wanted to get involved and see if there's anything they can do to improve their palm oil consumption that they're using.
Yeah, the fact that even children, like, knew what was going on, I think they really felt like we got to start making changes.
To do something.
Yeah.
So what did Kellogg's agree to?
They set out a plan of how they would get completely sustainable palm oil by 2025, like tracing the palm oil all the way back to the plantation where it's come from. Because actually, like, palm oil is one of the most sustainable crops that you can use if it's like produced correctly.
Yeah. Recently you went back to Kellogg's to check up on their progress. So how did that meeting go?
It went quite well. We were mainly just checking up on all of their targets as they are working towards their goals.
Do you think Kellogg's will be able to meet all their goals by 2025?
Well, they were actually positive that they would, so it's just up to us to make sure that they actually do.
Well, you guys are doing an amazing job. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, are Australian dairy cows really being fed chocolate? The answer is yes, it's a fact.
The farmer gives his herd a whole range of products from the local chocolate factory that would otherwise go to waste. He says his cows love it all, plain or milk chocolate, and produce excellent milk. And yes, some of it does go into chocolate milk drinks. Finally today, we're going to end with two amazing sporting milestones.
Firstly, tennis. The Serbian Novak Djokovic has just broken the men's record for major tournaments won. His victory at the French Open took his tally of what are called Grand Slam tournament wins to a phenomenal 23, overtaking the Spaniard Rafael Nadal on 22 and the Swiss Roger Federer, who retired on 20.
Djokovic is now level with the great women's champion Serena Williams and just one behind Margaret Court.
And of course, the other great sporting achievement is Manchester City's treble, adding the Champions League to their Premier League and FA Cup victories.
Well, joining us now from Manchester is our very own presenter and mad Man City superfan, Braden. So, Braden, what have you got there?
Oh, well, I've only got the Premier League in one hand and the Champions League in the other. Yeah, City have done the treble and I am super happy.
So, you were in Istanbul for the Champions League final. What was that like?
It was absolutely amazing. I mean, I couldn't have enjoyed it any more, to be honest with you.
Why is it so special that you're winning the treble?
I mean, we're the second team in England to do it because we've won our first ever UEFA Champions League.
You predicted all of this in a surprise meeting with manager Pep Guardiola back in 2016 when he first came to Man City, didn't you?
Yeah, so on Pep Guardiola's first day in Manchester, little Braden was tricked into getting a taxi with him.
Take a sip now.
It's really him.
I am.
It's really him.
Yes, I am.
Pep Guardiola.
Yes.
Now we've got you. We're going to win them all. We're going to win all the trophies. Where are we going to put them all?
All the trophies are
Yep.
winning? Are you sure? Yeah. Okay, we're going to try.
Cute or what?
I mean, not a bad prediction, was it? I wasn't wrong, was I?
Thank you so much for joining us, Brayden.
And we're going to leave you with some pictures of Brayden celebrating in the inevitable rain. See you next time. Bye.
He's absolutely chucking it down. The atmosphere is building. City have got all 3 trophies at the front, and it's getting lively. Here they come! Come on!
Dang, 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 ding, dong, ding.